Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by Ryan Abraham and Shotgun Spratling. We have a fun show for you today, and I'm not just saying that because it's my birthday.
Happy birthday, Keely.
Thank you. Today we're going to be previewing USC's Spring Showcase. Shotgun's already mad at me, I can tell. We're going to be previewing the Spring Showcase that's on Saturday at 11 a.m. on Cromwell Field. If you're in the area, make sure you stop by and check it out. I didn't write the topics. It's my birthday. Happy birthday to me. The quarterback battle, we'll be discussing that. Is it really a battle? Is it JT's job? We'll get into that. And, of course, we are taking your calls, live calls. You can call 512-4TUNNEL. Chris Trevino is standing by to screen your call. You can tweet at us, hashtag TunnelVision. You don't have to reply to us. You can just tweet it out, put hashtag TunnelVision. I will see it. And we are streaming on all three platforms, Periscope, Facebook Live, and YouTube. So put your comments there. We'll be reading them, monitoring them, answering you guys. We love interacting with you guys. So we got a fun show today. Fellas, Ryan, you actually made it out to practice this week, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
You'll be making out tomorrow, and you'll be going there on Saturday, which is fun. But what have you guys seen so far from USC's week 4 of spring practice?
Week 4. Injury-wise, it's kind of the same, right? There's really not a whole lot going on. I think we talked on the podcast earlier. One of the guys I was really excited to see was Solomon Tuialapupu, especially early on that first week of spring ball. And then he's, to see the guy, kind of walk up the tunnel and not be, dressed and stuff, it's a little disappointing. And, a lot of people were talking beforehand about Chris Houston. Oh, my God, that's my friend. John Houston. John Houston moving to middle linebacker, and people were screaming, we want to see Solomon Tuialapupu, but you got to be available. And he's not been available. But, I think the defensive front, from what I saw, I like the way it's shaping up. I think Christian Rector is a guy that can really be poised to have a huge year. With the defensive back situation, it's tough just because there's a bunch of walk-ons and not as many people. You've got some guys out there. Isaiah Polamalu's got a little spring in his step. He's got some spunk. You'll see. It'll be great to see Talanoa Fungi. Seeing C.J. Pollard in that boot on his leg. It'll be a perfect time for him to be out there balling. And on the offensive side, things just seem a lot more efficient, I would say. And it's not very deep at the wide receiver core, and they're doing probably less 4 wide receiver sets than you might see during the season. You're seeing some 2 running back sets, which is nice, but there's not a lot of running backs either. But I'd like to see once they get a few more receivers out there and what they could really do. I feel like the offense might be handcuffed a little bit just because they can't do everything because they'd be pretty much killing those receivers.
Just a little bit. That's fine. You can kill the receivers. You got a couple
As a
walk-ons.
former receiver yourself, yeah.
Yeah, as long as you're on the field all the time. No, those guys are being run pretty hard, and Graham Harrell's even talked about that a little bit. Keely can touch on that in a second, but Graham Harrell talked about how they're kind of wearing the wide receivers out, but that's kind of what's going to happen in this offense. And if you want to be one of the guys, you should be ready to be kind of worn out. And a couple of the walk-ons have been pretty good. Filling in. Jack Webster, I think, has had a really good spring. He's a guy that may get some playing time in the future because of the numbers they have at the position. Devin Williams was not practicing yesterday, so he wasn't there. So that made it a little bit lighter there. But Amon-Ra St. Brown has been dominant this spring. He had probably one of his worst days of the spring on Tuesday, and still had a catch where he went up over Isaiah Polamalu on a deep ball, on a play-action deep ball, went up and snagged the ball away. I think the receivers will be fine. They're getting used to this offense. They're kind of figuring out where they run to when there's blitzes and where the hot reads are. Where's the run to grass has kind of been the phrase that they've used, and they're trying to figure out exactly when do you break your route off, when do you settle down. You got to more on. You got to read the defense and see what they're doing in this offense than just run your route and let the play out. I think more.
Yeah, as far as the wide receivers go, Graham Harrell was saying basically when we go full tempo, full speed, we're basically killing the guys out there. He said ideally they'd like 14 to 18 wide receivers in this type of offensive system. Yeah, that's a lot of wide receivers, and including walk-on players, they have 7 wide receivers this spring. So those guys are getting their
including the walk-on.
Yeah, including the walk-on, which is pretty crazy. So those guys are definitely getting a lot of reps. But the interesting thing is Graham Harrell had a lot of praise for USC's wide receivers. He essentially said the level that I hold all the wide receivers to that I will ever coach going forward has been raised based on Michael Pittman and Amon-Ra St. Brown. He said those guys they raise the level as far as what I expect from wide receivers, what wide receivers can do at this level. So high praise for USC's wide receivers, and rightfully so, because they've had their work cut out for them so far this spring.
And tight ends too. You've been limited with tight ends. I mean, Drew Wolf has been out basically the last week. Josh Follows in a non-contact jersey right now, so you basically have Eric Cromanhook and a couple of walk-ons behind him. So there's not a lot of, you can't just push out Josh Follow and say, hey, go run some receiver routes because we expect you to be able to split out and stuff. You don't have that luxury right now. There's very limited bodies there, so trying to make the most of it, trying to implement this offense as best they can. They've basically been installing it week by week, but not like you would think. It's not, okay, well, we put in 10 plays the first week, now we'll add 5 plays, No, it's we put in 10 the first week, now we're going to run the same 10 the second week, now we're going to run the same 10.
Yeah.
And it basically, like, the way JT Daniels described it last week was that they're reinstalling each week.
Yeah.
So you're installing the offense, and you're just you're installing it once more, the same offense, going over the things the same way you did the first week, and they've done that 3 times. Now they're on their 4th time this week.
Two points I want to bring up with that. One, with Keely, you brought up typically, what did he say? 14 receivers?
14 to 18 wide
Okay,
receivers.
14 to 18 wide receivers.
That's got to include the tight ends, right? Because usually there's not a ton of tight ends in
Maybe he said receivers, but I'm pretty sure he said wide receivers, which is crazy.
So that is why when when USC reassembled its coaching staff, we said typically you have 2 wide receivers coaches.
Yeah.
So
Great
I love
point.
Kerry Colbert, but him being a green wide receivers coach, if he's supposed to have 14 to 18 guys under him, that's a huge part of the offense. So that's why when Clay Helton restructured things, most likely thought it was going to be something where you'd have 2 wide receiver coaches. And I forget my second point. So what was the last thing you brought up?
Well, can I just add?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, you got that.
Your point, Ryan, that also kind of makes you question the decisions behind Trayvon Sidney and Josh Bebe.
Yes.
This is a system where they will get a lot more playing time based on what they saw previously. And it makes you wonder if they're going to transfer somewhere, are they going to get as much playing time or as much quote-unquote clout if they go somewhere else versus if they stayed and ran in this system. So it makes you kind of wonder about those decisions.
Yeah.
Also, Randall Grimes, who also transferred to Minnesota.
Yeah.
He's the one guy that actually has landed somewhere.
And Velus Jones, potential for him to come back. And
That's the question mark on that one. I mean,
he's still listed in the transfer portal, so yeah.
Still listed on the roster as well,
Yeah.
though, I believe so.
And what was the second part that you were bringing up afterwards? Man, I forget, you were talking about the receivers.
Tight ends, splitting out the tight ends.
No, it was something else. I don't know. My brain's mush.
Alrighty, well, moving on to the second topic I alluded to. Quarterback battle, question mark. We talked about this on the Family Feud podcast earlier today. Check that out, plugging the podcast. But is this really a true quarterback battle? Does it seem like it's you kind of know who number 1 is? Is this more figuring out who 2, 3, and 4 are? How have you guys perceived this quote unquote battle so far this spring?
Okay, so this is interesting, and it's a lot of people have very strong opinions because it's the quarterback, and that's the most important position in sports, in any sport. Like being a quarterback, that pretty much wraps everything. You're doing it all. And I feel like there's been some, I don't know, like criticism that's been unfair about JT Daniels and what he's done last year. There's some people that are behind him. There's a lot of people that are like, nope, you got to go this direction, you got to go that direction. I think it's really impressive that Keelan Slovis has been able to come in and perform well. It's nice that they're all kind of on the same page and learning the system. Speaking of that, I remember what you were talking about, installing everything in 3 days. Lane Kiffin probably couldn't have installed his whole offense in the entire spring. Like he would have taken, he got there like half the playbook. If
Maybe
he
the
did
entire year.
Yeah. So
he was still installing as you're going through.
So it's very nice that you can, get all that stuff installed in 1 week and you redo it. And you just, obviously the point is you're going to run this over and over and over again. You're going to do it really well and be good at instead of having plays that are in the playbook that you had never even seen or have run at practice yet. And he could randomly call it in the game. But to me, I feel like we're going to get a pretty good idea by the end of spring, like where the quarterbacks stand, but probably not know more until fall. Maybe over the summer, you'll see some more of that, leadership from JT Daniels or Jack Sears or whoever, and as they kind of go through all those drills. But it's almost like being like the people that are criticizing JT Daniels. It's sort of like being an actor given like a bad script and like a bad production team and stuff, and then you watch the film or the show or whatever, and you're like, man, he stinks. And I don't really feel like that was the case. I feel like, okay, you want to watch him with a good script and a good cast and good production and everyone around him, and then you can kind of put them all on the same page. It's just last year the offense just was not. There was no identity to that offense. It was really just big plays. They relied on that. You want them to be able to be an efficient offense that moves the ball down the field, receivers running to grass, being schemed open, and moving the chains and actually having sustained drive. So I think now you have an offense that these guys are all going to be on more of a level playing field. And I feel like JT Daniels is probably still going to win the job. But for the people who are criticizing him, I felt like that was more of an offensive criticism than this was all JT Daniels' fault.
And he still put up similar numbers to Matt Barkley his freshman year. So I don't think it was all on JT Daniels. I think he got beat up early in the season. That hurt his confidence. So he didn't throw with the best mechanics the rest of the season. At times he was throwing off his back foot and stuff. I think he's much more confident in this offensive system. I think it's similar to what he ran at Mater Dei. I think that the way that he can manipulate defenders is similar to what they did with the Mater Dei schemes as well. So far, it seems like he's playing with more confidence, even when he's playing behind the second offensive line, which has been a struggle for any of the quarterbacks. I think he's still, being able to play with more confidence and more. It just seems like he's got more confidence in himself, not just in what's going on around him, but in himself as well, that he can make the plays that maybe last year he was a little hesitant to at times.
Yeah,
I think it was just. That's what happens with freshman quarterbacks, especially if they get beat up early. They take a bunch of hits early like he did in that Stanford game. It's hard for them to regain their confidence as quickly as you would a third-year guy or a fourth-year guy.
And I would say all of the quarterbacks seem to have, some confidence, even, Keaton Silva. And I think just being familiar with the system, they're still learning it. They're still, Graham Harrell talked about Slovis not getting the ball out fast enough, and he threw a pick the other day at practice, and it didn't really bite him other times when he wasn't getting the ball out when he was supposed to on time. Then the one time he gets bit. So you kind of have these lessons that you're learning throughout the way. But I think they all have confidence because they're in a system that really makes sense and it kind of puts them in a position to succeed.
Yeah, and JT Daniels spoke to that essentially on Tuesday. He said, and I have to preface this because people are going to take it out of context. It sounds like a shot, but JT's just very blunt. And he said it makes a difference having an offensive coordinator who has his own scheme, who's run it successfully before and can teach us how to do it, what to do, and knows how to do it well. And he said, in a sense, the offense is kind of uniting behind that. They're more together because they have a scheme that they all can unite under the scheme umbrella, if you will. So I think that's an added bonus of having Graham Harrell there.
So a little shot at T. Martin. There's a lot of the USC fans do that too, and I feel if you want to use that like acting analogy, it was sort of like he's a director. It was hard to tell how good of a director he was because he was given a bad script and he didn't have the authority to like change it and go. And a lot of people said, well, it should be his offense. It wasn't his offense. That's not the way things work. So yeah, I feel like there was some undue criticism for T. Martin as well. But yeah, I don't think JT was really taking a shot at him.
No.
It just overall it didn't work. You had like 3 cooks in the kitchen and it just all that stuff didn't work. There's a cliche restaurant analogy, but it's a cliche
Who
one.
had
so
15 minutes in the show? You win the pool. As I alluded to, the spring showcase is on Saturday. Michael on Facebook says, what time does it start and what time do the gates open? So technically it starts at 11. Just in general, during spring camp, the team starts to walk out like 30 minutes before they say practice really starts.
Yeah.
So if you want to see things and get involved and see the atmosphere, I would get there at least 10:30 just to get a sense of things. But what are you guys expecting for this spring quote-unquote showcase? Don't get your hopes up. It's not going to be a game. And it's televised, which means it probably will be even more vanilla than what we've seen in practice. But what are you guys expecting on Saturday?
Yeah, I think the 11 is when Pac-12 Network goes live. So they're going to be live for 1 hour. The football players are going to be doing Swim with Mike afterwards. I don't know exactly the time. Someone said like 12:30. I'm not sure, but it'll be pretty quick to kind of get that over with. But they're going to go after that, and it's a great, they're raising a lot of money, scholarships for athletes that have some special needs and some issues and difficulties. Jake Olson was one of the recipients of that, so make sure you check out. They've been doing that forever. Ron Orr started that. They've done a great job with Swim with Mike. But with the spring showcase, sort of similar to what we saw last year, which wasn't great. But I feel like because of the quarterback play, it just really put a damper on things. I think it's going to look better than what we saw last year. But drill-wise and stuff, I don't think you're going to see full on, just game like sort of things. I think they're going to do similar drills to what they were doing last year, but it should work better. I think just with the offense being more efficient. I know they're banged up at the receivers and stuff, but I just feel like it's going to be more fun to watch. It wasn't that fun to watch for fans last year. I think this one will be a little bit more fun to watch.
I mean, if you like watching practice, because that's what it's going to be. It's not going to be a game.
Yeah.
My guess is going to be the exact same practice we see on Saturdays, which, Gerard came to last Saturday's practice, and in our group text, he was like, I just realized that's not really a scrimmage. There was some full tackling periods, but that's it. No, they're not really scrimmaging. They haven't done that in a few years now, basically. They don't have true scrimmages where, they'll have one in the fall, mock game week. They don't even have a full one then. All the ones are done. That's been the case the last 2 years. So full scrimmages have been rare recently. So I don't think you'll see that on Saturday either. I don't know that you'll see completely vanilla as far as the offense goes, because I think if you have that few plays, then it's not like anybody's not going to know what you're running. And I think that's what Graham Harrell said a couple times. So I think you'll see the offense run the plays they expect. I don't think you're going to see the defense call up any kind of exotic blitzes or anything where they're bringing a safety out of somewhere, where they're trying to really fool somebody. They don't want to show that to teams that may watch the spring showcase later on. But I think that the offense, I think you're going to see what they're going to run. That this is going to be the offense that they go with. Maybe they don't have any special plays necessarily drawn up, but all the base plays I think you'll see on Saturday. So that'll be the thing to watch for people that are watching at home, is checking out and seeing what the offense does, and maybe see the tempo. See if they get to run with some tempo in some of those segments. And if the offense is clicking a little bit, then you may see them go down the field and see how quickly that offense can actually attack.
Yeah, watch the defensive front just to see if that looks any different to you with more of a four-man sort of front. Watch the offensive lines, the splits that they use, and obviously you want to watch how the quarterbacks play. Speaking of, we did have a Periscope from It's OKG. They said, at Penguin of Troy, so our friend Alicia D'Artola, who came over and did this show with us a couple weeks ago, she ranked the quarterback so far in spring camp as 1, Fink, 2, JT Daniels, 3, Keaton Slovis, and 4, Jack Sears. Would you guys agree?
See, I'm not sure when she ranked this, because I listened to their most recent podcast, and she said
she was putting something up, so maybe that was from before.
Maybe her recent podcast, she said 90% chance that JT Daniels would be the starter.
Okay.
So
maybe that was an older rank. Yeah, because I did hear, I was listening to that too, and I think that was coming out. I don't know if it has gone up on the site yet, but
I mean, you might could say that about Saturday's quote unquote scrimmage. I mean, Matt Fink had a couple nice throws. He finished the day with a touchdown throw over the middle against a blitz. He had another pass over the deep ball over the middle. They lobbed perfectly over the defense on that. So maybe on that day in particular, he was the number one guy, but he's not been the number one guy for the full spring.
They're saying it came out today, so that was yeah, interesting. But Fink, I mean, I feel like they all have been very confident. My gut still says it's going to be JT Daniels when all said and done, but who knows? I mean, do you feel like when you guys have watched, do you feel like they're splitting, the time equally? Graham Harrell talked about that they're all going to get the same first team reps and stuff. Do you feel like that's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, they rotated who works with the first team, who works with the second team, who works with the run period versus who works with the 7-on-7 when the offense is going, or the 1-on-1s. They've done all those rotations and stuff, but at the end of the day, I think it comes down to JT Daniels. I think he's the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Fink has looked better. He definitely looks better than he did last spring. It just, when it comes to JT, the ceiling is just so much higher, So I don't think Fink would be number one for me right now.
Oh, nice. Throw it. I would make fun of Keely, but it's her birthday, so I won't give her some.
How dare you?
I wouldn't say
Don't
like
hold back.
Keely throwing Alicia under the bus, telling her how
No.
wrong she is and
No.
stuff. But it's her birthday, so I won't do that.
You still did
Tweet at Keely is my name. Wish her happy birthday. Don't complain to
Oh,
her.
Okay, fine. Any thoughts before we get into questions, fellas? Any notes about the defense? We talked a lot of offense at the top of the show. Any defensive tidbits you would like to share?
What do you think? What have you thought of the depth at linebacker? Because that's like, you
He
talk
has
about.
some hot takes about linebacker.
Yeah.
We talked about this in the Family Feud. I think it's just weird. They moved so many linebackers.
It is. It's kind of strange.
Inside, I know they're changing things with that front and what they want to do with those positions, but I think you move one person and you can give that guy a little bit of special attention if you think he's the guy that's going to be in the rotation. make sure he gets coached up. But if you're moving, it's basically like you're teaching an entire new group now because you got Kanai Mauga is there. You got Juliano Falanico in there. Jordan Iosefa moves back inside. You're switching spots with Keely and John Houston. So it's like, hey, all right, I know you guys played all these positions last year. We're going to change everything.
Yeah.
And
there's only like 2 spots now instead of like 3 or 4,
And so it's just strange to me that there was so much movement there, and I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to get out of it. I mean, from the scrum that I've been in with Clancy so far this spring, and from the ones I've listened to, like there hasn't been a clear explanation of we just decided to do this because.
Yeah.
It's kind of talk around it. We like this guy and this little thing here, but not a real explanation. We decided to move a bunch of people because we sucked last year. Like that would have been an explanation. I'd be like, okay, that makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
Which I wouldn't say that about necessarily the linebacker group itself. I thought the linebackers were fine last year. Cam Smith obviously had another big year. But if you want to say that about the team in general, you could go with that.
Yeah. And part of the reason why Raymond Scott moving back and was he playing like the
safety?
It's like is he the nickel whatever they call that. So he's playing back there in the safety spot or helping out with the dime nickel packages. And then Connor Murphy is someone, remember, we would answer questions on this podcast. People would ask us about Alawali Batiku and Connor Murphy, and we were like, nope, they don't really do anything. And we put some stuff in the war room about him last week. Check it out. But he's back. He looks healthy. He's put on weight. He's played some defensive tackle. He's played some inside too, right?
Yeah,
but mostly defensive end.
Bouncing back and forth. Him and Nick Figueroa is another guy that I've seen that's played inside at defensive tackle. Has also played on the edge as well. So I'm trying to still figure out exactly what they're trying to do there. I just don't. I don't have a full grasp on it. I don't think because there's been so many moving parts, and we talked about that on the Family View too. Is there's been a lot of mixing and matching, and maybe they're just not confident in a set number of guys right now. Like these are our 11 guys. These going to be where they're still moving around guys and just trying to figure out what works here. And maybe that's just the trial and error period that is because it's the spring, which is perfectly fine. And maybe they discover somebody that they weren't expecting. That some guy's a really good middle linebacker that was on the outside, or vice versa, or one of the defensive tackles like this guy coming off the edge. We thought he was just a body in the middle to stuff the run, but man, he's doing really good coming. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what they're trying to do there.
My gut says there's going to be some pretty talented linebackers that aren't getting enough playing time just because of the way it's going to shake out. We'll see, but it seems like that's not a position where you're hurting for bodies.
It's almost like you brought in 6 of them in one recruiting class. Oh wait, you did. So
maybe.
Now you got to deal with that.
While we're on the topic of that, the Killer B 730 says, "Is Kanai Mauga looking comfortable in the middle, or is he looking like a project?"
It's funny. He's got a nice bun on his hair. I took a picture of him yesterday. Keely, on the Family Feud podcast, they talked about his hair.
Plugging it so much.
I'm just helping you guys out. It's your birthday. I'm trying to help you out. Yeah.
Thank you.
So he made the all hair team. Do you think he makes like the all, should be first team?
No.
Yeah, it's tough because the way if
you got Keely and you got John Houston in front of him, so all those guys that moved in the middle, unless somebody gets hurt, they're not going to play.
Right, and I feel like he was someone that was kind of fast-tracked to be getting more playing time and rush the passer a little bit. And like now he's really, I don't know if you want to say he's out of position, but he's not.
He's been lost. I haven't really noticed him at all.
Yeah. Besides the hair.
Now, they're going to do some things where they bring blitzes with those guys. And if they decide to actually sub more and decide that use certain packages for players and say, hey, this is 3rd and long and we'll bring him in or something like that, or on this drive, we're going to be looking at maybe trying to bring some more pressure. Let's change the packaging up, and we'll bring him in, and he can do both type of things. And but it's not something that's been accustomed for Clancy Pendergast. He doesn't. He'll use some substitutions based on down and distance, so 3rd and long, pass rush situations, but it's not like a series long type of thing. That's not usually what they do. You
would need a whole almost different look than what they're practicing, and then that would get away from what you're talking about, simplifying things, right? Like if you were going to use Kanai Mauga in like this, exotic packages you haven't really seen that much of, that seems like that would add complexity to things where you're having almost different types of defenses going out there. So I don't know. That I'm be a little concerned about there's going to be some talented linebackers, like I said, that just might be lost in the shuffle somehow.
I mean,
he could be one of them.
If Solomon Tuliaupupu gets on the field, we expect him to be a guy that makes plays. But if you're playing 2 inside linebackers and John Houston and Keely and Itiote are there, I don't think there's anybody else going to get in that mix. Now, if you want to use different packages and do stuff like that, you can use all those guys. But are you going to take John Houston and Pallier off the field? That doesn't seem – it seems kind of counterproductive. Like, you never saw Cameron Smith come off the field, even though Cameron Smith, if it's 3rd and 24, there's a better guy on the defense for that type of situation. Because there's guys that are faster than him that have better lateral movement and stuff that would fit better in there. Or you just go to a dime package and you only have one linebacker and you take a Cam Smith off the field or something. But that's not something they've done a bunch of. So it's hard to say, I think that Giuliano Falanico is going to get some opportunities. Because that's not something they've done in the past, where they've used multiple looks with different with the same position, or used multiple guys in the same position. It's just not something there, and he's not going to pass John Houston or Pallier and Itiote.
Yeah. What do you think about Hunter Echols?
Hunter Echols is a guy coming off the edge, and he's a guy that's gotten some pressure on Saturday during the scrimmage. He had a couple of plays kind of in a back-to-back sequence or a 2 or 3 play sequence where he got through Liam Jimmons easily, with the inside move, and he forced the quarterback up in the pocket, and Jay Tufele got sacked. The next play, there was some 2 plays later, there was some pressure from the other side. He ended up getting the sack. So he's a guy that's been getting some in the backfield some of the times. When I've been paying attention in some of the team portions to the defensive line, he's been a guy that has stood out as a guy that will get to the quarterback. He did that last year. He was one of the more active guys as far as getting pressures per snap played. So I broke that stat down in the war room 1 week, but he was one of the guys that was close to the top. Liam Jimmons actually was the best defensive tackle, if I remember correctly.
Oh, wow.
He's a guy they flipped over to offensive tackle. So, it just depends on what they want from him and what they want out of that position. If you want a pass rusher, he can go do it.
But with Echols in there, it seems like that looks more like what you had with a Predator and stuff last year, right? So they're I guess they're playing with it, but then I'd like to see like a Kanai Mauga out there too, but. I don't know. There's a lot of. The good thing is on the front 7, there's a lot of really talented players, and so you have to kind of Clancy Pendergast has to figure out which way to range all those guys. Hunter has a very cool owl tattoo on his forehead. Tweet if you go to my Inside Troy on Twitter, I tweeted out a picture of this earlier today. So he was coming up the tunnel, and I was taking pictures, and he put his so on his forearm, the eyes of the owl, right in front of his face mask. It was pretty funny. He's like, "Make sure, did you get that?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I got it. We're good."
Put him on
I talked to him last week.
I
talked to him last week. Actually, he talked about how he's dropping more. So there's being asked different things of the position this year. So again, whose skill set fits best there? That's a question.
Yeah, do you want a Rector out there? Dropping more, or is it?
I mean, I think Rector's going to be coming at the quarterback every time. He's going to be their premier pass rusher this year. He and Jay Tufele are the 2 guys that should lead the team in sacks. We'll see if it plays out that way. I mean, I thought last year that Rector and Porter Gustin would be the 2 guys that lead the team in sacks, even though Rector was going to be a guy that's coming in for certain packages and doing different things. But then obviously when Porter got hurt, he ended up playing more and more as well. So
yeah. Have you guys do we have any calls yet or no?
No. So
Call
as a
in.
reminder,
Yeah.
512-4-TUNNEL.
512-4-TUNNEL. If you're watching, just
If
pick
you
up
have
the
a
phone.
hot take, you really want to get on the show,
Yeah.
that's your avenue.
We
right
last
there.
couple of weeks we've had a lot of good calls, so it's been good.
Yeah.
So we love the phone calls; they're fun. But we love the tweets and we love the Facebook and YouTube comments and all that stuff and Periscope. So it's great. We want to make this interactive. That's the whole point of doing this live. Now, most people end up watching it, on replay. But
True. Shouts
we
to
love
the replays.
Yes, thanks for being the replay people. But if you're watching it live, we want you to be part of the show.
Yeah. And speaking of which, when we started talking about the quarterbacks, there was a lot of movement on YouTube. A lot of people are like, how can you say JT is the quarterback? SoCal Trojan 619 says, how could you already predict that JT is the starter? He's a bum. Matt Fink looks more competent than JT. And then Very LA says, JT may seem like the better practice quarterback, but the real question is who's the best game time quarterback and who performs the best under an inexperienced O-line. So a lot of people have, and I've gotten a lot of Twitter tweets at me about
Twitter tweets. Got it.
Twitter tweets. Some people are like,
It's her birthday.
you don't talk about JT enough. Some people are like, you always talk about JT. So people have a lot of opinions about JT Daniel in this whole quarterback battle.
Yeah, it's very polarizing.
Because
It
it's
is.
quarterback.
Yeah,
True.
it is the most important position in sports, like I said, and it's there are people that just don't like him for whatever reason, and that's fine. That's just we're making predictions because that's what we do. We talk about things. I don't know what you. My gut. If I had to bet on somebody, and I'm taking my own money and said who's going to be the starting quarterback, I would say pretty good chance it's going to be JT Daniels. Is Jack Sears more of a gamer? Yeah, I've heard people say that. There's definitely players that have done that. JT Daniels with we're going to go back to the actor analogy, with the bad script and bad production and bad director, did the best by far last year with what he had in practice. So that's what you're going to base it on when you're going to come to, it's all the builds up, all the rehearsals and stuff when the actual game comes out, when the actual show starts. He's the one that rehearsed the best, so they did it. But that was with the bad script and bad everything else. Now they all have a really good script and a great director and good production and good people around them. I feel like it might take a little while for them to figure this all out. So give all of them a chance. If you like Jack Sears a lot, just kind of wait and see. I think they all have the potential to be good. I'm just saying, if I had to put money on it, I would probably pick JT Daniels. I would pick JT Daniels at this point.
Shotgun?
Even if I was using Ryan's money, I'd still put my money on JT Daniels.
I feel like you'd be more reckless of
But there's people that are like, maybe it's some of the people that are like, we need to get a whole new coaching staff, and I don't like, so they'll pick a decision that was made and use that as another reason why Clay Helton is not meant for this job. This is a whole different offense. This is good. You just got to back away. And JT Daniels does have like that high football IQ, could pick things up quickly. Maybe it's more of an advantage for the other guys because he would probably do better in a more complicated system because it wouldn't be as daunting for him. They're all pretty close now because of that. It's like this easier system to run. But I feel like it's going to work well in JT's favor. And like Shotgun was saying, when he got kind of shell-shocked last year and being a true freshman out there, I think now he's battle-tested in this better system. He's going to go forward, and I think he's going to perform a lot better. So anything could happen. It's not like we're saying we're advocating for JT Daniels. I'm just saying, hey, that's from what my guess would be so far, I would pick him.
Yeah. I would have to agree. Jasper Smith on YouTube says, speaking of JT, will he be able to go through his progressions this year in lieu of just going to his first option and throwing up a jump ball?
That was the offense's first option.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. I know if he's doing that, if he's throwing up jump balls, then he wouldn't win the job because that's not what this offense is. This offense is pick up, first downs. It's not like 5 yards on first down. Maybe you run the ball for 2, and then you got to throw a 6-yard out and complete it and move the chains. The offense last year couldn't do that. It was like, if it was 3rd and 10, like maybe you could throw a 40-yard bomb and it works, and then that's a good drive. Otherwise, you punt. So I feel like he's going to be able to do that. If he can't do that, he wouldn't be winning this job.
I mean, I think he has the best skill set for this offense. I think the modern day offense they ran, where he actually moved pieces around himself, I think he'll eventually gain a bit of control like that in this type of offense if he's the guy that's chosen. No one has stood out. None of the 4 has stood out like, oh my God, that guy there's no way he can't be. JT did that last fall. There was
You're right.
You looked at that competition. It was like, why are they even still saying that it's really tight with the other 2 guys?
Right.
That one was just clear cut. So far this spring, that has not happened. So it's still up in the air to an extent. But I think JT's the guy that ends up winning out. Just from seeing his past performances, seeing him grow from when he was 13 or 14 years old to now, I think he's the guy that will end up winning this job. Whose skill set fits it best? I think JT can. The fact that he can read the defense really quickly, rip it and let it go, and just work your way down the field that way, I think it'll work fine. I think the offense can be good. I think the other quarterbacks can have success in it too, so I don't think it's a lost cause for any of them that they immediately have to transfer out, and I don't think the position is won yet. But, again, we both agree that if we were going to bet on it, it would be on JT.
Yeah. But if you're a Jack Sears fan or you're a Matt Fink fan, it was weird last year because you had basically 2 guys you're going through spring football, and it was a mess. Basically, like guys like running through mud, and then JT Daniels comes and he's like walking on water as he runs by them. It was like they were so bogged down, and then JT Daniels comes in fresh and just like blows by them, and it's like it was very clear.
Yeah.
But now they've all been on the same system. They've maybe. With Dan Weber likes to joke, like, sometimes the more coaching you're getting around you, the worse you get. So he comes in fresh without any of the coaching and perform better. But I feel like they're all starting more from the same page. There's not, it's not Jack Sears and Matt Fink that have just got buried because they were playing so bad in the spring. They're moving forward. They're all going together now. So I think you like one of those guys, they have a real shot. We're just all predicting that it's probably going to be JT.
The quarterbacks have been much better this spring than we were last year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Both Matt Fink and Jack Sears are, they look way better than they did then.
The entire competition. Because last year it was like, wow, neither one of these guys is taking the opportunity to separate themselves.
Yeah.
Because both of those guys had a chance to get just a leg up on the other guy, whether it be Sears or Fink, going into the competition into the fall, knowing that JT Daniels was going to come and knowing that they were not going to win it, very unlikely to win it in the spring. So, and both of them had that opportunity, and neither one of them took advantage of it. Whereas this spring, all 4 quarterbacks are playing. It's not like you're going, oh, my gosh, this quarterback plays. Yeah. Which last spring, at times, it was that. It was, this is hard to watch because it was just not very efficient. That's the difference. This offense is giving these guys confidence. They're playing with confidence. They're playing with confidence that the offense will succeed as long as they make their right reads. It's not, hey, they got to make 6 reads and, you got to go from one side of the field to the other. It's boom, boom, boom. If it's not there, then you take off running or you throw it to the running back and stuff. We've gotten several questions. Is JT still staring down his receivers? I think that he has done well with moving his eyes and going back and forth and moving from one progression to the next. But I don't think that they're going to ask them to have a full field progression. It's going to be a one side of the field, three reads, or a quick turn your head type of thing. I don't think it's going to be look for this route, look for that route, look for this, and work your way all the way across the field or back and forth or however you want to do it. I think they're going to that's part of it, simplifying the offense, giving them a couple of reads to make, and then if it's not there, either take off running or you throw it to the running back and let them try to take off running.
Yeah. The entire offensive structure around them is just so much better.
Yeah.
You can't help but give those guys confidence. Like, we could do this show like driving in a car with no Wi-Fi done on a phone. Like, we could still produce the show, but it would be really hard to do and we'd be like distracted at what's going on. But this is better when you have like a better system around you. Like we have, it's all set up and like we could be better on the show. It's not like you couldn't do it before. And I feel like it's the same sort of thing. Like the structure around them last year was so bad and it just didn't really, I felt like Jack Sears or Matt Fink would step forward, but neither one of them really could. I thought they got better in the fall, but now they have this better system around them and you see all the quarterbacks performing well. And that's to me, that tells you this is a pretty good offensive system that they've brought in.
What's the saying? High tides rise all boats, or what is that one?
Rising tides lift all boats, or something like that.
Something like that. One last question on the quarterback since we're on it. SC Slot Guy says, hypothetically, if JT's the starter and goes down, who do you guys pick next?
That's where the question is, because I don't think any of those guys have separated themselves. I mean, Keaton Slovis has looked good in the spring, but I don't think he's necessarily ready to be the backup yet. I know that was a question last week. I think Jack Sears' ball placement has been off at least the last week and a half or so. A ball that should be in the hands of the receiver has been up or has been behind him or whatever it may be. I think he's been a little off recently, but I think he's a guy that in 5 practices that are remaining could make up that ground over the last bad week and a half or so. I think in the last week and a half he can make that up, but we'll see. And I think Matt Fink has been pretty consistent there. I think he's made some really good throws, and he's probably had the least interceptions of the group, I want to say. I mean, I'm just trying to go off memory off the top of my head, but I want to say he's got the least out of the 4 guys. So he's been good at taking care of the ball. Now, it's hard to tell, and there is a tremendous difference when you're going with the first-string offensive line and the second-string offensive line. Or first-string offense and second-string offense. Because first-string offensive line, you got the 5 guys that are going to be the starters right now. There's questions about this. We can get into it later.
That's what's weird, too, because they haven't really wavered from that at all. They haven't rotated at all. No. It's like first string is the first string.
Because there's no one there to compete with them.
Yeah.
Clayton Bradley is not practicing. Bernard Shermer is not practicing. None of those other guys have a single play of experience, I don't believe. Unless Jacob Daniels played a couple of snaps of offense. You have 2 defensive tackles you've converted in Jacob Daniel and Liam Jimmons, excuse me. You have Liam Douglas, who's been playing football for 3 years. Who is a project that knew was going to take a little while. You have Justin Dedich, who is is going to be a redshirt freshman, who's undersized the center position. Brett Nealon's more experienced than him. And then you have Frank Martin, who's never played a down, who's playing left tackle now. And he's not played any tackle previously at USC. He's been basically a guard his entire time. So you got him at that. So they just don't have the depth there, and they don't have the actual guys that you thought would be competing for positions. Yeah. Those guys aren't practicing right now. So
like Gino Quinones, too, was like a move from a defensive lineman, right? Yeah. So he's not really – he's got to be learning on the job,
He's practicing with that group, too. And it's not just the offensive line, though. We talked about it earlier. How many receivers are there? Well, second string, if you're going and you're the quarterback – suddenly you have 3 walk-ons that you're throwing to. Okay, granted, you can still throw and you have to make the right decision, but it's easier to throw to Michael Pittman than it is a walk-on. Michael Pittman is 6'4".
Slightly.
You throw it up high, he'll go catch it versus a 5'10" walk-on or whatever it may be in that regard. The same thing with the tight ends. Right now you have one healthy tight end. So if you're on the second string, you're going with a guy that transferred as a walk-on from Vanderbilt, I believe. I believe that's the back. Maybe I'm mixing up my backup walk-ons right now, but there's some white guy that just got there, 2 weeks ago, type of thing.
Yeah.
So if those are your options, it's much more difficult to succeed. So we've seen them rotate, and that's when you've seen the quarterback struggle, is when there's no talent around them.
Yeah.
I
It's
wouldn't
kind
say
of
no talent, but a
Not
talent
as much.
gap,
An
a
extreme drop-off from the starters when you have no
Yes.
receivers, you have no tight ends. Last week you had no running backs. I'm talking about scholarship guys.
Right,
you have
right.
none of those at the skill positions.
Yeah.
That tells me no talent.
I think there's an opportunity there too, because sometimes if you remember when a guy comes in as a quarterback and he redshirts and he gets to run the scout team for the entire year and he's going against the first, with walk-ons and stuff against the first team defense, like, oh, that guy's making some plays. So I feel there's some opportunity of like, hey, you can make this offense work with not as much talent on the offensive line and the receivers and running backs and stuff. I think you can kind of separate yourself a little bit if you can do that. So at least there's an opportunity there. I mean, Sam Darnold did that when he came in as a true freshman and he was running the scout team, and the defensive players were like, dude, this guy's good.
You also see, and part of it is the depth at USC with the injuries right now, but there's a big difference when you're on that scout team and you get to grow up a little bit with Deontay Burnett and Daniel Mortabebe. And then suddenly when Sam Darnold took over, those were his go-to targets, and those were two guys that have NFL potential. I mean, Deontay Burnett's there, and if Daniel Mortabebe was healthy, I think he's an NFL tight end as well. So it's much different when those are the guys you're throwing to versus right now. No offense to the walk-on wide receivers, but none of those guys are going to the NFL.
Yeah.
It ain't happening. So it's much different when you can grow up with a guy and they're learning and they're becoming better and stuff. And right now, that's just not the case.
Yeah.
So it's just really hard to be with that second team and have a lot of success because there's still some guys, especially on the defensive line, on that second string and the linebackers. We talked about how much depth there is that are really good players. And will they get an opportunity to play during this regular season? That's a question. But in practice, they are, and they're going against guys that are not as good as them right now.
So we actually have a live caller.
Yes.
I would like to get to him. I think it's Al in San Pedro. Hello, Al.
Yeah, this is Al in San Pedro. Yes, it is.
Hi, how you doing?
What's up, Al? You're just down the street from us.
Oh, yeah. I can get on the bus and get there in half an hour.
Nice.
Yeah, real close. Yeah, I'm here right here, and I really love your show.
Thanks.
I think you guys got a good thing going there. And, I'd like to make a couple of comments on from week one up to now, and these practices I read in the paper and listened to your shows and other shows. They keep mentioning the limited number of plays and the repetition of the plays over and over again. I think history will tell you in football anyway, as far as I think with the Green Bay Packers, they used to have a very limited number of plays, and it was perfection that Vince Lombardi called for. And also with the Trojans, it was student body left, student body right. Everybody knew it was coming, but they had perfected those plays. So the fewer the amount of plays, you perfect them and just change your blocking angles and run the daylight. So I like the theory of fewer plays, perfect them, even less monotonous, and the players will get used to it. And like I say, if you speed up the game for them, they'll also give us a better chance to move those chains. So another thing I'd like to mention is, or ask you, how is our kickers, the field goal and our punters coming along? And again, I'll listen for your comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Al. And it's funny. And it's funny that Graham Harrell was playing for the Green Bay Packers, but this is a different era. It wasn't the Vince Lombardi era. It's when they had every play was like 40 words, and he's like, "Whoa, we gotta simplify that down." And there are USC fans that are concerned that because you don't run as many plays, people can figure you out by the end of the year and things like that. I mean, Shotgun mentioned on the Family Feud podcast about Washington State doing really well, except when they play Washington, and some of that is maybe they haven't figured it out. But I think there's a beauty to being the simplicity of it, and because it's college and you have limited time, I would much rather see a smaller playbook that you execute really well than a larger one that you've touched on a lot of different things. And it gives you a lot more variety, but you're not really going to be good at any one of those things. So I like the philosophy too, Al. I appreciate that. And we've seen USC teams in the past do that. So there is a precedent there. People are like, oh, you're getting away from what USC does. Well, you're kind of getting back to one of the things USC did, which was not having that complicated of a playbook, just doing what you do really well. Instead of student body right, student body left, there's going to be more of a passing element and stuff to it. I watched a little bit of Ben Griffith yesterday, working with one of the officials, actually. I don't know why one of the officials was there, and John Baxter. And man, he was just pounding the ball. I mean, just absolutely destroying it. So people are going, whoa. So I think he's going to be an absolute weapon.
Metro Boomin wants some more. He's booming out there.
He
What
was
a
booming.
reference. Yeah, no, Ben Griffiths is a game changer. I think he's someone to watch for. I think USC fans are not used to having such a huge leg out there, so I'm pretty interested in that going forward.
Yeah, don't overcoach him. Don't like say, well, we're going to try to make him. Just let him go back and hammer the ball. Like, you're out, kick your coverage, whatever. Just boom that thing. It's going to go over some guys' heads. You're going to get like an 80-yard punt at some point. Like, it's going to be good.
Ideally, you don't see him much
Yeah.
True.
if you're USC fans.
Great point.
He probably won't be used as much as they used the punter last year.
True.
What about Chase McGrath is still
Out. Yes.
he's still out. He's still rehabbing.
He did actually do some rehab work on
True.
the field on Tuesdays. The first time I think we've seen that.
Yeah.
So he's working his way back. You've seen some of the other guys that are coming back from the ACL injuries. I mean, it's a little bit different with a kicker, a little bit different of emotion and different things that you need from the leg than guys like Kyle Ford or Max Williams that are coming back, and they've been coming back pretty quickly. But that's a good thing to see, though, see him back out there. I think Alex Stadhouse is a guy that proved himself last year as the kickoff guy. I think he's going to be there again. I think there's some question marks, though, there with the field goal kicker after that. And
Yeah.
I think that Ben Griffiths answers what you need at the punter spot. You know, you had 2 scholarship guys there last year, and it was up and down. I think he answers that there, but the kicker spot is still a little bit of concern too.
And Ben Griffith's doing the holding too, right?
Yes, he
he's
is.
holding. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for the call, Al. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Great call.
We have a Facebook question
Okay.
from Kobe. He says, "Do you believe any players have national accolades potential this year? Household names? Question mark.
Oh, interesting.
My prediction still holds. And I said that Stephen Carr would be a Heisman finalist his junior year. And I did say that before he got to campus, but I'm not going to back down from it now.
No.
I mean, it might not be the best bet out there, but I'm not going to back down from now. Why would I do that?
I think he has the potential to definitely be in that group. I mean, any one of the wide receivers. The problem is that you might see, instead of one, we've seen this happen at USC before. You have one guy that's like the go-to guy. I think it'd be better if you're seeing like 40, 50, 60 catches each by, these guys. And where, maybe it's not this guy's getting all the reps and stuff like that. So it might be a little spread out for the wide receivers.
I think you could still, Jay Samaro at Texas Tech as a tight end was able to win the Mackey Award. You've seen, I think Michael Crabtree.
He had like 100 catches in that offense or something. It was ridiculous.
I think Crabtree was a Blitnikoff finalist at least with the Texas Tech offense. So you've seen guys that have been potential, and I think that Michael Pittman is a guy that could be up there. Amon-Ra, Tyler Vaughn. I think with those three and the fact that they have different skill sets, I think that you will spread the ball out more to them. Whereas if it was I just think those 3 guys are on a different level than the guys that are in the transfer portal now. So if you had 2 of those guys and replaced 2 of the other, the top tier guys, then maybe you throw to Michael Pittman more if it's Trayvon Sidney and Josh Motorbebe with him or whatever it may be. Just because I don't think that their skill sets match up the same as Amon-Ra and Tyler Vaughn's. I think that you can just do different things with that trio. So I think it will be kind of hard for that. On the defensive side, that's where you got to look.
I think Christian Rector, because he's been so up or down, like he's either super on or just like not there. I feel like he's going to be there and is going to get he'll get a lot of production out of that spot.
And it just depends on if the team's good. You don't get accolades when you're not good and the team's not good.
True, yeah, the team's got to be good. I mean, the quarterback could, of course, if it's JT Daniels and he's like, 8 games in, he's got like 3,000 yards and like 25 touchdowns and 4 picks or something. Like,
and
okay, he's
7-1, yeah. But
people are going to talk about
if you're 2-6, no one's going to talk about
it.
you.
It doesn't matter.
Just doesn't. In college football, the Heisman Trophy goes to one of the two best. I mean, it goes to the player with the best stats on one of the top 3 teams, basically every year for the last 25 years, essentially, which is usually a quarterback. Sometimes a running back. Like every 5 years, you're going to running back in there. Never a receiver. No defensive players. Doesn't matter. And Ndamukong Suh should have won that easily. He was so dominant that year with Nebraska and had no chance because he was a defensive player. You got to score a bunch of touchdowns and play on offense and do all that crap. No, the Heisman's just kind of a fluff award in my mind half the time, anyways, because it just basically goes to the guy with the best stats on one of the top 3 teams usually. So the other awards, the position-specific awards, are a lot of times more important, but also those come with the cachet of your team winning because All-American team for the AP All-American team. Well, the writers, if you're a crappy team, they don't see you on TV. They're not paying attention to, wow, that guy's really good.
Yeah, you'd have to be like a standout on like a 4-8 team, but you caught like 125 balls or something. Like, okay, that's what it would take, like some ridiculousness,
And probably still wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Plus, being viral on Twitter, giving you an extra boost.
Yeah. What do you think? Maybe a Talanoa Hufanga could potentially, when he comes back, maybe he would be.
I think EA is just a guy that makes big plays, impact plays. So I think he's a guy that could do it because I think he'll potentially get an interception or 2. He could cause some fumbles. He's going to blitz some and get some sacks. So I think his accumulation of stats could make him a guy in there potentially.
Yeah, maybe bat some balls down. They've been pretty good at doing that from that position. So we'll see.
We will see. We actually have another caller on the line.
Yes.
Oops, I just put us away at the screen. Sorry. Let's go to Mike in Silver Lake.
Hello, Mike.
Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Yes. Hi. How are you? Listen, I don't know. You might have discussed this already, and I'm not sure. But anyway, do you think this incident with Swan over the weekend and the and the look of that, him being away signing autographs for money, while most of the university's leadership was up at a conference in Santa Barbara, is that an indication that he's basically done and he's basically just hanging out until they decide until what's her name comes in, the new president.
Carol
They got
Folt.
rid of the yes, they got rid of Provost and the other person. So what do you think? I don't know whether you discussed this or not.
We haven't actually discussed this yet, so.
Yeah, Mike, we haven't yet. USC's provost and basically like the general counsel, like on the legal side, are both retiring. We'll see whatever that means. But they're the day before Carol Folt gets to USC on July 1st, they're retiring on June 30th. I think the optics are pretty bad for Lynn Swann, and I didn't like his statement to come out and defend his decisions. It's the second time he's come out and said, not everyone's going to agree with the athletic director's decisions and stuff. And it wasn't a great look. I think, and John Wilner wrote, it's like the optics weren't just bad, they were like awful. It really was. And he was saying that he had this obligation for months, and that's fine, but your main job has to be running the USC athletic department. And my gut feeling, and I think I said this on the podcast with Dan Weber and Keely, is if like the athletic department is like a child, Lynn Swann seems more like an uncle than a dad. It's not like it's the most important thing in his life. And it's going to an event like this when there's basically turmoil all around, and you're having this this retreat to try to like fix things, you should be a part of that. And they came out and said, oh, he didn't really need to. Well, that's probably why you're in this, part of the reason why you're in this mess in the first place. He needs to be a part of all that stuff. And I'm not blaming it all on him. He shouldn't have been hired in the first place. Does it mean he's on the way out? I mean, I have no idea. But the fact that they are making some big changes at key positions, I think that's a good sign. Most of the people we've seen USC get hired in very high positions have just kept everything the same around them. When Pat Hayden came in, there wasn't like mass changes in the athletic department. When Lynn Swann came in, everything's exactly the same. We at least now know they're making some bigger changes. Now there's been a lot of scandals and stuff, so you kind of have to, but they probably should have done it before, and they've never done it. So I think it's a good sign. I'm not saying 100% that it means he's going to be on the way out because he went out and did this show. I just feel like that's who he is. That's who his life is. And USC hired him, so that's what you're going to get. But it's going to be up to Carol to come in, Carol Fulton come in and say, hey, we're going to make a change here.
It just seemed weird for him to go do it when he knows all the commotion that's been going on around the thing, but also it's a guy signing autographs. I mean, he's allowed to go do things and make money, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
he didn't attend the Clay Helton golf tournament either, which was that earlier in that week. I don't know if it was because of that, but I talked to some people that were there, like, no, Lynn Swann wasn't there. So you know, it's a golf thing. You'd think he'd go to that.
You would just think that a guy that's being paid over $1 million from USC, we assume making over $1 million because Pat Hayden definitely was, that your primary occupation would precede any secondary income that you would need to go try to make. So if everything's peachy and everyone's having a great time at USC, then sure, you go to Disneyland. But if everything's terrible and there's a big scandal that just happened in the last month, then you probably go, you know what, we probably should save the money and the house just burned down. We probably shouldn't go to Disneyland next week.
It's not a capital offense, but it's like it's not a good look. And it shows that there's a tone deafness there that we've seen over and over and over again. And this is just the exact same thing. Like, how is this going to look? And nobody in the room is going, hey, you know what? I just wouldn't do that. And maybe people did. And he said, and he just denied it. Like, oh, I'm going to do it. It doesn't matter. But that's kind of the thing about it. It's just there's this tone deafness that we've seen from the athletic department. And a lot of the fans, when they flew that banner over the Coliseum and all that stuff, that's what they're saying. Like, they have all these concerns, and no one is really listening to them. They didn't like the Coliseum renovation. There's so many things that the fans push back on, and they just get ignored. And this is one of those things where maybe there were advisors around Lynn Swann saying, hey, don't go do that. I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world he did, but it just looks terrible. And you have to just be smart enough to go, you know what, I'm going to skip this. I think Scott Wolf reported there was a bunch of other athletes that didn't show, either that canceled as well. So it wasn't like you couldn't cancel. I don't know if the report is true or not, but at least that's what he tweeted out earlier today. So if that's the case, you're like, you make a call, you pay a fee or whatever it is, and like, look, I'll reschedule it or something. But right now there's just too much going on around USC. I got this retreat I should be going to and all that. So, is it like, I don't think it means that his job is done or anything, but I just think it's another bad look for the athletic department.
Yeah.
It's just it's dumb that's a topic because it just shouldn't be type of thing. Like, you shouldn't put yourself in the situation when there's trouble afoot, and it shouldn't really be that big of a concern at the same time.
Yeah. It's the thing. It's like if you're looking at Lynn Swann, I'd love to get like a psychologist or something. We get Jody Adewale to come back and look at it. Like, it's almost like you look at it as like, hey, it's not a big deal for me to go back and do this, and you can justify it in your head, which is like if you park in a no parking, like a handicap zone, you're like, I'm only going to be in there 5 minutes, and the ticket's going to be $100. Like, on its own, like, it's not a good thing to do, but it's not like the worst. But if you already have like a glove box full of tickets and your bumper's fallen off because you're a terrible driver and you wrecked and you didn't report it and stuff, like, then that makes you parking in a handicap spot that much worse because you have all these other things around it. And I feel like just looking at that one infraction is like, you could let it slide. But that's not it. There's so many other things going on. You have to. It's a cumulative effect, and it seems like Lynn Swann just kind of ignored all the other stuff around him and said, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal."
Yeah, I mean, if you've been criticized a lot for being tone deaf, being tone deaf again doesn't really help. Like, it's what you said. It's on its face. It's not that bad. He said he hasn't done one in 5 years, so what he does in his free time is what he wants to do. But it's not a good look when you're involved in a federal investigation that suggested that you don't know what's happening in your athletic department. It's not a good look.
Yeah, and then you got the LA Times writing these, hit stories about you and stuff. You're like, I'm going to try to button things up a little bit going forward.
Yeah.
But
this story would not matter if USC was winning.
True.
Yeah. Or didn't have people in the athletic department arrested by the FBI.
If you were winning enough, it still probably wouldn't be that big of a story.
Yeah.
We actually have another live caller. Thanks, Mike, for the call. Let's go to Brandon in Wisconsin. Hello, Brandon.
How's it going?
Hi. What's your question for the team?
My question is, who do you think is going to be a team captain and also a vocal leader on both offense and defense? We haven't really had one of those people that have just been in your face and trying to rally you up to a victory.
Hey, Brandon, do me a favor real quick. Can you wish
Yeah.
Keely a happy birthday?
No, don't do that. You don't have to do that.
Happy
Brandon.
birthday.
Thanks,
Or
Brandon.
we could all
Wait.
sing, Brad.
Awkward.
That was just nice of you. Thanks, Brandon, for
Thank
doing.
you, Brandon.
My-
Ryan, answer the question.
My first thought is Austin Jackson on the offensive side.
Oh.
He talked about after the final game, the Notre Dame game, that he wanted to be more of a leader. I talked to him a little bit about that this spring. He's taken on that role a little bit more, being the vocal guy as well. So in the offense is where it's been lacking. The defense, they've had guys. I mean, they had such a great senior class last year of guys that were leaders at all three levels. And guys like Uchenna Nwosu, even the year before, Cam Smith, Iman Marshall, Marvell Tell, you got a bunch of guys there that are quality guys, and Porter Gustin as well. So I think that the defense, you're not that concerned. Now, who fills in there? I think John Houston has done a good job of taking over that Mike linebacker spot. He's been more vocal. Keely talked about that earlier on our podcast about how he's been a guy that has even startled her a little bit yesterday. It was wait, who is that yelling? Oh, that's John Houston. That's strange. But guys like that. The question is going to be, who else? Is there somebody on that defensive line? Is it Christian Rector? Is he vocal enough of a guy? Is it a guy like Tufele or Marlon Tuipulotu? Those guys seem a little bit more quiet.
There's a lot of quiet guys.
Is there a guy in the secondary? Is there, is it Talanoa Hufunga? Is it Isaiah Polamau? Is it somebody like that? There were some louder guys that are now gone from the program. Like Bubba Bolden is more of a vocal guy that you hear chirping back and forth with teams, but he's not there. So is it one of those other guys? Who's going to be the guy? I don't know. On defense, I think that your middle linebackers, you always want them to be guys that are leaders because they have to call out the plays. They have to do that. You also want that with a safety. So you got John Houston, Palier, and Itiote. I think everyone on the team respects him, so I think he's a leader by example, at least, if not as well as vocal. But on the offense, I think it starts with Austin Jackson, and then we'll see if anyone else. Do you name the quarterback? Whoever wins do you name them a captain? I mean, that's kind of how it happened usually.
Yeah.
I mean, is that going to be the case?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I think Michael Pittman has a shot because he's a senior with there. I think there's a real opportunity. I'm not sure about the quarterback. If I had to guess right now, I kind of think of John Houston, Christian Rector, Austin Jackson, and Michael Pittman. If I had to guess for 4,
That'd be a good 4.
That's pretty good. Would you add a fifth, the quarterback?
Nah.
It's funny. The last time I think they did like too many captains. And one year they did 6. I think that was the year like Josh Shaw was a captain, and it
Oh gosh.
didn't really work. Which is actually okay when you have to lose a captain. Then you still had like 5 more.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to pick up a bad memory,
True.
but
But yeah, I
I
think
think they've
that's a
kept
good
it to
call.
4 pretty much the last several years.
Those were a good call though. I would agree.
But I mean, are any of them like super vocal guys? Like you said, John Houston's doing that more, but normally he's pretty quiet.
Yeah.
If JT Daniels is like, it's hard to understand him in his media scrum.
True.
Sometimes he's pretty quiet, dude. So
True.
it's been strange. You got like Chris Hawkins is graduate assistant helping on the defensive side. Maybe he can like coach up some of those guys to be a little bit more vocal.
True. Well, thanks, Brandon, for the call. We
Yeah.
appreciate you calling in. We have a question from John on Facebook. He really wants to talk about the running backs. What have you guys seen from all 3 scholarship running backs? Who are your guys? I know a lot of people ask, like, who's going to be the starting running back, which I don't feel like really matters because the rotation is there. But what are your thoughts about the running backs?
I think Stephen Carr can have a breakout year because of the way they throw the ball in this offense and because of the way that the blocking scheme is going to open up big lanes at times. So I think he'll have an opportunity to get to the 2nd or 3rd level. And if he does that, then he can be a guy to make a guy miss, and suddenly a 10-yard gain turns into a 50 or 60-yard gain.
Yeah, I think the run to grass concept is great for the wide receivers. It's awesome for the running backs where they're going to be put in spots where things are spread out a little bit more, and it's not going to be as easy to cover those guys. And I think all 3 of them can catch the football well.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Carr, I think, has like that. It could be awesome. Like if he's healthy and everything works out right, like you just see like this could go, crazy bonkers. But Marquis Stepp has stepped up and played really well. I think he's helped himself a lot this spring. So I think you're going to see a really nice group there. I don't know if it's going to be, a exact order of the way things go, but I think Vi can be awesome, but for what my gut still says, Stephen Carr, it could be like the super breakout thing. I'm not saying he's going to win the Heisman like Shotgun was saying, but he might be one of those guys that gets mentioned and just like one of those stars if he's healthy and he works in this offense the way we think he can.
And I think that Vi is probably going to be the more consistent guy. He's the guy you're going to be able to count on for consistent yardage. But Stephen Carr has that home run ability if he's completely healthy and he has that burst back that we didn't really see last year.
Yeah.
Agreed. We actually have another caller on the
Pow,
line.
pow, wow, we're going. Like,
I know.
the late callers.
Yeah.
Keely's got to get out of here to go do some birthday stuff. You
No,
know?
it's okay. Richard from Glendale, hello.
Hey, happy birthday, Keely.
Thank you. What's your question for the team?
Happy birthday. Yeah, is USC still involved in recruiting DJ Ukulele?
Richard, thank you. So, still has Bryce Young as the
We have a 2020 commit from Bryce Young. The thing is, like, if you're going to have to go in on one or the other. If one of them wanted to commit and they wanted to commit to USC, you take that commitment, because if you try to kind of hedge your bets and talk with both of them and never really go fully in on one, then you'll probably lose both, because that's what happened when they had KJ Costello and Patterson and
Shea Patterson. Yeah.
And there was a couple guys, and they went and they ended up having to get Matt Fink later when there were some higher profile quarterbacks that they were in the running for, Tua Tagovailoa, that they were in the mix for, and because they kind of hemmed and hawed and tried to talk to all of them instead of going full bore after one of them, or making the change after one of them committed, it never worked for them. So they missed out on some guys there for a couple of cycles in a row, kind of. Jack Sears was a guy they flipped later. Same thing, where they went after some guys earlier, and they were fortunate enough to be able to get Matt Fink. They were fortunate to get Jack Sears and flip him, because the next year they didn't get anybody. And then they had to get JT Daniels to come in early. So,
right.
That was part of the reason why he came in early, is because they didn't end up getting a quarterback to class. So I think that if for some reason Bryce Young were to flip his commitment and go somewhere else, then they would go hard after DJ.
Yeah.
But you've got Bryce Young. You're not going to try to
Right.
go and get him. It's
like
you're not going to bring both those guys in.
Yeah,
it's not going to work.
It's the bird in the hand thing. And just from when we see Bryce Young around and his family and stuff, it just doesn't seem like that's going to be, who knows? I mean, maybe the team loses some games or something, but it seems like he's in, like solid in and stuff. It would have to be if Graham Harrell, they're in some meetings sometimes, like, you know what, we really want to go in this different direction. It would be a pretty big deal, because you're not, you'd have to pretty much know you would be able to get DJ if you're going to do that. I don't think they're going to do something like that, but it would either be Bryce Young dropping USC, or USC, for some reason dropping Bryce Young and then going after DJ. But I just don't see that happening.
I'm thinking if I had a crystal ball to put in, I would put it in on Clemson. He really likes Clemson. He's been there a few times. He's looking southeast more than staying on the West Coast.
He definitely
unless he goes to Oregon. And he is a pro prospect.
He looks the part. Yeah.
He's a pro prospect. The other thing is, he's probably going to play football. He's likely going to play football. But there's a possibility now. He has been injured this spring, but he's playing baseball this spring. He just got back, I believe, a week ago or so. But he had an injury to, I think, his non-throwing arm. But I've heard from baseball scouts that he's 94 plus on the mound. Now, I don't know how good of a pitcher he is, but they are curious enough to go see him.
Yeah.
And so there are scouts that are going to look at, check him out to see if he's a viable baseball candidate. And if he is, and he's drafted high enough, the baseball money comes a lot sooner than the football money, and there's a lot more injury risk with the football money rather than the guarantee that you get with the signing bonus. So that's a possibility you're hedging your bets, or you're betting against. At the same time, if you're recruiting him, and that's kind of the case. That was the same thing with Kyler Murray. Coming out of high school, because he could have been drafted out of high school and then he never would have went to Texas A&M.
Yeah, but if he win the Heisman, then it's like it changes the game.
I'm just talking about coming out of high school.
Right, yeah.
Because he could have signed out of high school and then he never makes it to play football.
Yeah. Keely, you've talked to these guys. What do you think?
Bryce Young's in it.
Yeah.
The whole thing about Bryce Young is that he wanted to make his decision early, because guys' talent will come if they know a quarterback's going to be in that class. And that was his whole decision. That was the thinking process behind Bryce's Young decision to go early and go in the class. Because right now, the 2020 class for USC is Bryce Young and then like a punter or someone random.
Parker Lewis.
Yeah,
Parker
Lewis, the kicker. So that's his whole thing. And, we go to these camps and talking to Bryce and talking to his family, they're all in. They're like, okay, like, where's the offensive lineman in this class? What can we do to bring this up? They love Graham Harrell, So Bryce, for his part, I think is all in with USC. DJ, I I don't think I've ever interviewed him, so I don't know that whole factor. I did see him on campus with his little brother. His little brother got offered that same day during spring camp. But, I definitely think Bryce is in it to win it for USC.
Which is telling you that USC's keeping that flame warm over here on the side, but they're cooking over here with Bryce Young.
Yeah.
And Bryce
USC
Young
has a side chick, is what you're saying?
No, they're just keeping them warm.
Okay.
The stove warm on the other side in case you need to add a little
backup?
dessert on there
Yeah.
at the end or whatever. Bryce Young is being a leader of this class as far as recruiting goes. Josh Jackson, one of the reasons why he committed to USC, said it's because of his relationship to Bryce Young. They're premium teammates.
2021, right?
No, he's 2020 as well.
Oh,
Joshua
he's
Jackson.
okay.
Wide receiver from Narbonne who just committed last
Oh, yeah,
two Saturdays
okay.
ago.
True, forgot that, but yes.
Yeah, so he's the leader of this class, so he's the guy. Now, you never know what's going to happen in recruiting.
No.
Because
True.
if the season does really well or the season does really poorly, then
Yes.
things change.
Or you see what kind of those are two different kind of quarterbacks.
Sure.
And it's
Yeah.
like, does Bryce Young say, you know what, that's really not my style, or does Graham Harrell we'd really like to get this big strong guy, whatever it is. I mean, I don't see that happening, but to answer the question, I think that's probably the only way this would go down like that.
Yeah.
Because USC screwed it up before, going after two really, trying to date both of them, and they've at least picked one now. So you'd have to, some sort of breakup would have to happen for them to go after the other one.
True. Thank you, Richard, for the call. We have a YouTube question from Vontae. He says, who's looking the best at corner so far through spring practice?
Who's that walk-on guy? He's great. No.
The answer is I would go with Greg Johnson. I think Greg Johnson's looking.
Really?
He's got multiple interceptions. He's in a non-contact jersey, so he can't tackle or anything, but I think he's looked good. What did you go with? Don't go, really? And then not answer.
I'm surprised. I think
There's
that's
only 3 of them. It's not that hard to pick.
RIP headphone users. No, I think Greg Johnson has looked good as of late. I don't think consistently throughout the whole spring practice.
Oh, because he missed a week because he was injured?
Also because he was
Transfer
in the transfer
portal,
portal,
yeah.
but
When he came back, and then he was in injury
Yeah.
as well.
Well, he was returning from. He had
Talanoa Hufanga before he got hurt. Not corner. He's not a corner. Never
not a
mind.
cornerback.
I
There's only
thought it was a
3 of
defensive
them.
back. I got the question wrong. Okay, fine. Yes, Greg Johnson.
It's
Congrats.
him, Isaac Taylor Stewart, if you want to count Chase Williams as
But he's
a
doing a
nickel back.
Yeah.
I mean, Dominic Davis actually looked really good yesterday. He had a really nice day
He did.
as a cornerback. I know there was a question earlier about why is he not on offense. I think it's because you have 4 or 5 guys that are
Right.
in the secondary right now.
They feel a little bit better about the running back position than they do in the secondary, and that's good. I think he needs to get some run. He's too athletic to not be out there doing something. So it's good to see him have a good day yesterday.
And Britton Allen, I've been impressed with at cornerback.
Yeah.
The fact that he's a safety playing corner and they put him at that position. But I think my
He's been-
answer would
he's
still be
been-
Greg Johnson.
He's been banged up a lot of. camp, too.
ITS honorable mention.
You can
He's
do
still
whatever
young.
you want to.
I know. YouTube says you're pissed today, Shotgun. He's spicy.
Spicy.
Sometimes he gets into it.
I had Mexican food last night.
We have a Facebook question. Actually, no, we don't. It's 7:15. Let's get some
wrap?
rapid fire going. We actually have another call on the line. Shotgun,
Oh.
I'm going to you after this call for some rapid fire, so
Okay.
get that ready. But first, let's go to Jagger. I don't think it's big, but it's Jagger from Huntington Beach. Hello, you are on the line.
Hey, am I on?
Hey,
Yes, you
Jagger,
are.
what's up?
Hey, what's up? First, I just want to say happy birthday to Keely.
Thank you.
Nice. I started a trend there. Good.
Yeah. I just want to know if you guys think that Marquis Stepp actually has a chance to be the bell cow back this year, or if he'll probably see limited touches behind Levi and Stephen Carr.
I think he'll get. I don't think he'll be the bell cow. I think he'll get touches. I think maybe it ends up being a 50-30-20 type of split, and where he falls in there might depend on who gets hurt for the longest amount of time, because one of those guys is going to get hurt. The starter is almost inevitably going to get hurt. No running back makes it through their USC career without getting hurt. It just happens. So the question is, if it's Vi or Stephen Carr, how long are those guys out? Because you're going to use 2 backs. They're doing some 2-back sets as well, so they're going to use 2 backs in different ways. Even if one of the guys is hurt, you're going to use a starter and a backup. I think it depends on how long the injury is to one of the other 2 guys,
Yeah.
or if it's to him. as to how much he actually gets, how much run he gets. I don't think he's going to be the 50, but I think he'll be 30 or 20.
Yeah, right now I don't think, Jagger, that he would be the 50 as Shotgun's saying. But I think if you are a Marquis Stepp fan, you have to like when those other two guys were hurt, how much he stepped up. I think the coaches have a lot of confidence in him. And if there is a little bit, he's not quite doing things right, or this guy is banged up a little bit, he could come in and be that guy. I don't think it's going to be that way out of the gate unless there are some injuries and stuff in the fall or whatever. But he's shown when he was put in the spotlight, unlike what the quarterbacks did last year, he stepped up and was like, hey, man, I can be the man. So he's available, and I think that the coaches realize that. So it's a good thing.
He definitely has a role, and he'll have a bigger role going forward when you lose guys like Vi and Carr. But Clay Helton actually talked about Stepp last Saturday, and he said, to be a back in this offense, you have to be the complete back. You can't just run. You have to catch the ball. And he actually said that Marquis Stepp wasn't all the way there with his catching ability, which I think Stepp is pretty good, but not.
Because he never had to in high school, right? Like
this was the first time that he ever has caught passes. So Marquis Stepp is not that full back yet that I think the coaches have confidence in yet to be the number one guy or the bell cow. So
and Keely also talked on our podcast about how Mike Jinks got onto him for his pass blocking as well in a drill. Yeah. So that may be an area he still has to work on as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah. To Marquis Stepp's credit, though, he did come back the next time that they did those drills on last Thursday and did much better. So maybe Mike Jinks yelling at him did something.
Thanks, Jagger.
Thank you, Jagger, for the call and for wishing me happy birthday. Shottington, it is your turn.
You want to go to the overall
rapid fire?
The big.
Oh, the big shot. Yeah, sure, we can do that.
I don't know if we can see anything different. I added some soundproofing on the walls. If the sound sounds a little better, we're still building this out a little bit, but. It's better. I told you for so long we were going to have a backdrop, and we finally do.
He's so excited, guys.
He's very excited.
Hit likes on all your stuff. Like, do those.
John wanted to know, would Norm Chow be a good addition to this coaching staff as a consultant, especially since he transitioned from an air raid offense to balanced attack and knows how to use power backs? Ryan, what do you think?
100%. I spoke at a quarterback luncheon thing here in the South Bay, and he was there, and we talked quite a while. He hasn't been contacted. He wasn't looking to come in and be the OC or the quarterback coach or anything, but he would love to, come and be a consultant for something like that. And he, when he talks about the air raid kind of spread, he talked about what he was doing at BYU and stuff like that. I mean, they were spreading the ball all over the place. So there's a lot of the same concepts there. I think it'd be great to be a consultant for USC.
It's never a bad idea to have more smart football minds. So, yeah, definitely a good idea. John also asked, how are the defensive and offensive lines looking? I think that there is and this goes to another question that Killer B asked, how bad is the drop-off from the first offensive line and the second-string guys? I think there is a
big
noticeable difference between the first and second offensive lines. The defensive lines, though, I think they're pretty consistent. I think you got several bodies there that you're looking forward to seeing what they do. I mean, guys like Connor Murphy and Nick Figueroa are getting some run with the first team. And you got guys like Jacob Lichtenstein that we haven't even talked much about, but he's been pretty solid for the defensive line as well. Christian Rector, I don't think I've said much about him, while talking at practice, but he's just a consistent force there too. So he's going to be good. So the defensive line has much more depth than the offensive line, and I think that that there's a lot of talent on that line. The offensive line, I think, is improving week by week, though. Now, part of it is installing a new offense and getting used to things, but I think they're getting used to each other, and I think Tim Drevno is having a pretty good impact right now. They've talked about how the communication is better, and that's one of the biggest things that Tim Drevno has focused on is the communication. So that's obviously a positive from where they were previously with having the Ohio State game where it's 13 games in and you're having communication issues. That shouldn't be happening.
Yep. Next one.
Oh, okay.
I have a Facebook question.
Oh, okay. Good.
Lined up, ready.
So we're turning to rapid fire. So
yeah, Paul says, with the short numbers you guys keep mentioning, wouldn't the transfer portal be a good place to find better talent than walk-on? Shotgun, is SC looking at anyone in the transfer portal?
It would, but it wouldn't really help them now.
Yeah.
So,
No.
I mean, there are going to be more bodies in the fall when you get the freshman fall enrollees or summer enrollees when they get on campus. So you have some more bodies there.
And the roster's capped. I think there's only room to bring in like one person, with the initial scholarship. So it's not like you could bring in 5 people or anything anyway.
You could bring in. I think there's a couple of people you could bring in, right?
We'll have to go through the math and stuff. I think there's really only 1, maybe 2 spots. I don't think you could bring in a whole bunch of people.
They are still looking at some guys. Drew Richmond, the offensive tackle from Tennessee, was on campus last weekend.
2 weekends ago, maybe. I think, yeah.
So he was there. He was on campus for an official visit. So there are guys they're still looking at. If they could pick up an offensive lineman, that would help just because of the depth issues they have right now, that there's not the true competition you would like to see when there's three open spots being left. So we'll see how that goes. Another offensive line question is the offensive line pass protection going to struggle this year? I don't think so. I think with the offense they're running, I think that they're going to be roadblocks and they're going to force guys to go around them and take longer to get to the quarterback, and they'll throw the ball quickly. So I don't think so.
Yeah, I think scheme-wise it's going to help them, even if they're not as talented as they were maybe last year.
And that was kind of more so their strength than run blocking last year.
Yeah, definitely last year they were better pass blocking than run blocking. Which true freshman, Victor asked, has the best chance to win a starting job?
Ben Griffiths.
Jude Wolf.
Technically, he's not a true freshman, though, because he is
he's a redshirt freshman.
He's also transferring in. He has to get credits to some university in Australia. He had to get credits in
he's
Australia.
a 4-to-play-4 guy, so he's actually a redshirt freshman.
So technically, that is not.
Dang.
Jude Wolf, and I'll put money on it.
Ooh.
Jude Wolf.
Just because of depth.
I would say Drake Jackson, but that's a hard spot to get into.
Yeah.
There's just so many guys there, but he might eventually do it. Maybe Britton Allen.
Yeah.
Because he's got
Sneaky.
positional versatility there as well.
What about like a John Jackson?
It depends. I don't know
though?
that they're going to start 5 wide receivers. I mean, they might.
Yeah.
No, because I feel like Devin would be a starter before Jackson would, just because of seniority and experience.
Well, that's only 4, right? Am I missing a wide receiver? Pittman,
No.
Tyler Bonds, Amon-Ra, and Devin Williams, unless you're
true.
now,
Or, I mean-
you can look at the other freshmen. I think rather than John Jackson,
Like Jake London or
Drake London.
Drake London, sorry, not Jake.
Yeah, Drake London's my
True.
guy. I think he's
He
going
is
to
your
have a
guy.
chance to be good this year. And he's been out at almost every practice so far this year, or this spring, I mean. Very LA wants to know, how much is the team working on the run compared to the passing or air raid? Keely, how much do you think they're working on the run?
Oh, I would say like 35 run.
35%?
Yeah, 65 pass.
I mean, they do have a run period while they're also doing individual one-on-ones for cornerback receivers. So they go through a run period and everything every day.
Yeah.
So they're working on it. I mean, it's not that much different than before as far as, as the periods go. It's not like they just cut out any run period, any times where they're working. Just the play calling itself there's not as much run as their previous.
It's easier for them to run 9-on-7 because there's a lot more bodies for that drill than there. If you try to do full 11 and get multiple teams, you're running out of people quickly.
Great point. I have a Facebook question, Shotgun. Can I?
Facebook question, yes.
Facebook question. Bobby says, do you feel the defensive line will be improved because of the conditioning due to the practice pace? Graham talks about playing without thinking on offense. Wouldn't that translate to the defense too? We do need pressure, which leads to picks.
I would let me book in that question or combine that question. Vontae Anderson asked, do you guys think USC can lead college football in sacks again with this faster defense? Now, Keely talked about earlier, she talked with Coach Chad Kay previously about how he came in and said, you guys got to slim down. Because talking about the defense tackles, he said if you're good enough, then you can be slim and be explosive, and I think that's gonna be something that they go through with. I think you're gonna see they're gonna be attacking more up front than necessarily. It's not gonna be like a 2-gap system where the defensive tackles are just standing there waiting to see where the running back goes. They're gonna be shooting gaps and going after guys. So I think the defensive line can be much improved, and if they're more aggressive, that's the question. Are you gonna bring blitzes a lot, or are you gonna sit back? I think it'll play. Clancy will determine partly how well they do in that regard too.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to lead the nation in sacks again, just personnel wise. But
why? Just because they don't have Uchenna?
It's no
that
Porter.
helps.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of guys could emerge and be like that, but as of now, there was a lot of individual efforts for that.
Another offensive line question: is there any competition on the O-line? Is the top 5 guys that are much better than the backups? Yeah, just the top 5 guys right now, basically. There's a little bit of competition on the second 5 group with Gino Quinones and stuff, but there's not any experienced bodies in the second group to compete with that front group. I don't think.
Inserting a Facebook question, Steve says, what is your personal opinion on what can be expected from the Trojans this year?
Personal opinion.
Steve going big picture here.
That they'll score at least more than 6 more points, and therefore they'll win at least 4 more games than they last year. They lost 4 games, I think, by 6 or 1 score or less. So if they score 6 more points a game, They could have been 9-5 or was it 9-3 last year.
Yeah, and I think they can score like 10 more points a game. But then it's going to be, well, how does the defense respond? The defensive side is where you're losing more of the veteran talent. How different is it going to be? I'm very curious to see, but I think they're going to score a lot more points. I feel like to go from 5 to 8 wins shouldn't be that difficult. The question is, can you get to like 10 and win the Pac-12 again? I think that the potential is there. I'm not convinced that that's going to happen, but they certainly could do it.
Yeah, I feel like the thing about USC is that I feel like even last year with how bleak it was, you still had this feeling like they could be there if you had certain pieces together. And I feel like so far in spring, we've seen some of those pieces come together. More discipline, less flags when they have the refs out there, an offensive scheme that actually helps these players and puts them in chances to succeed. So I don't think you can downplay putting the caliber of talent these players have, putting them in positions to succeed, what that will do for this team. I don't want to go too optimistic, but I think you can.
Optimistic Keely. All right.
I think this is a case of optimistic.
How is Raymond Scott's switch to nickel going? I would say it's still a work in progress. He's still got work to do there before he's going to be on the field.
Just some of the coverage stuff, right? It's just like it's a little tougher.
Well, it's covering slot receivers is more difficult. But that's something he did do some in high school as well. He did drop and covers a lot. Bison for life. I don't know if they're a North Dakota State student or what.
Oh.
Or alum. Are the practices crisper or the same as last season? Keely, what would you say?
I was answering a question.
Crisper.
Yes, crispiness is there.
It does seem just more. It's more efficiently run. It's just better. Yeah, I think it's better.
Yeah.
It looks like they're doing better work.
I know that Elijah Griffin has not practiced, but how do you feel about him and cornerback depth when he returns in the fall? I think he'll be in the mix for a starting spot. He's still got to prove himself.
If I had to guess, he's going to start, but
he's got to prove himself still.
He needs to be consistent.
Isaac Taylor Stewart, Greg Johnson, none of them have been like, oh yeah, that guy's definitely a starter.
If I had to
Greg
guess,
Johnson has started previously.
He's going to start.
Robbie asks, most impressive lineman so far. I'm gonna go with Jay Tefele.
Which side of the ball?
Lineman, just giving you options. Don't take away the options, Keely.
Sorry, I'll go with Tefele as well.
He's been a stud,
Is this your pick this year? Is that who you?
I think I did earlier, picking Jay.
SC Slot Guy, this year's starting to feel like Pete Carroll year 2. We have all the pieces. The coaches just have to make it work. Would you agree, Ryan Abraham?
I do not. I hate Pete Carroll comparisons for most anything. This is really not a space for that. So, no.
Should Fink move to receiver to take advantage of his speed, or will he be a career backup?
We've gotten this question about Fink being a receiver so many times, and I don't know where this is coming
cool that
from.
he could.
I mean, he's pretty fast. He's tall. I don't know that he's played it before. I don't know his background prior to quarterback. I think he was always the quarterback at Glendora, right?
I
know he played safety there some, but I don't remember him playing receiver.
I don't know if he's going to be a career backup, but he got some opportunities last year, and he potentially could this year. I mean, he's still in the mix to get the starting job.
If he wouldn't have broken a bone, I mean, he would have started the next game.
Yeah, no, like Jack Sears kind of took advantage of that.
Yeah. Vontae, who's looking the best? We already did that one. Jasper, if there is one position that USC absolutely cannot afford the injury plague, which one is it? Now, if you're going to say plague, then it's quarterback. And plague means you lose everybody.
Yeah.
Any team can't lose the plague at quarterback. If it's one player going down, or two players, if you want to say two players going down, probably one of the tackle position, left tackle.
Yeah, it would either be, I think, the tackle spots, either safety or cornerback, maybe safety.
I mean, it's crazy because we mentioned quarterbacks and safety, and that's literally what USC had last season. They had injury plagues at both positions, which is just crazy.
Yeah, and you're losing like 8 defensive backs from that. I mean, you guys transferring out. I think at wide receiver you'll be okay losing 1 or 2. I think it's going to be either like you said, tackle, or maybe I'd go with safety. That would be tough.
Jordan McMillan can play. There's a walk-on that can play, guys.
Michael on Facebook says Fink only played DB in the playoffs.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Sears also played some safety as well in high school. Will the offense look like Oklahoma, Vontae asks? That is the hope of the wish and the dream. That's what they want. That they hope that they're
like 50 points a game. Sure, yeah.
And that their defense doesn't look like Oklahoma's.
Win like 2 Heismans in a row.
Yeah, whatever. Will number 5 ever be worn again? Very LA asks. And when that time comes, does that mean we'll be at national prominence again?
Yes and yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so you think 5 will be worn again?
Sure. I think Reggie's got to get his Heisman back. First of all, that the campaign's got to be started, and I think.
But if he gets his Heisman back, then nobody will wear it again, right? Because then they'll retire the number.
If you're gonna usher Reggie back into the actual year of person thing, then you gotta knock
That might be part of it.
jersey
Once
has
you're
to be
ushering him back in, and the
vaulted.
super stud recruit from San Diego comes in, they give him number 5. Darnell Bing wore number 20. Like Mike Garrett was the athletic director, gave him permission to wear it. I think it could happen. So I think it might be this whole ceremony thing. Like Reggie Bush is back, we're going to let someone wear number 5 and then never wear it again. So I think it's going to happen.
That happened with Jordan McLaughlin on the basketball team. Bill Sharman wore 11 and gave him permission, or Bill Sharman's family. I can't remember exactly.
Oh, okay.
Who wins the Pac-12 South now? Troy asks.
I'm probably going to pick Utah again, but USC is the most talented team in the Pac-12 South. I'm not going to pick USC. I think there's a potential they can win it again, but as of now, I'm going to have to wait to see a little. I might switch, but I'm not switching yet. So
David actually also asked, do you think this team will surprise the country and win the Pac? I don't think it would surprise the country. They'd be like, yeah, USC, they got talent. Of course they did.
That expectation is always there, no matter what's happening.
Yeah, all the talent, composite, 24/7 hasn't come out with theirs yet, but I've talked to other people on Twitter where they do these projections and stuff, and they're like, yeah, you might think Washington had better recruiting classes last cycle, but USC still has the most overall talent of anyone in the Pac-12. So I don't think it's going to shock anyone if USC wins.
If USC wins the Pac-12, will Shotgun wear a sombrero on TV?
Oh, please do.
No, I'm not.
I saw that comment.
Why would I wear a sombrero?
Sombrero.
Why wouldn't you wear a sombrero?
I think he also said on Cinco de Mayo.
Oh.
Which is more of an American holiday than it is a Mexican holiday.
It's
Yeah.
a margarita holiday is what it is. Kyle X pointed out that the Eure is also the unofficial offense of the white slot receiver. Wes Welker, Cole Beasley, Danny Amendola. Yes, this is a true statement. Because
USC hasn't recruited that well, though.
But a guy like Logan Loya, that's a guy that could fit in and be a similar type player as that, because he runs really crisp routes from Bosco now. He just transferred from Orange Lutheran. He was on the same team with Kyle Ford. That's the type of guy that you could go out and get now, and maybe that's who they go out and get, and who they're looking for. Joshua Jackson's another guy that's similar, where he can play inside, he can play outside. The commitment they just picked up. He's not necessarily a 6'4" guy like Michael Pittman, or a 6'2" lanky guy like Tyler Vaughns. He's a guy that's going to be interior, that you can move around in different spots and can go catch the ball. So your recruiting is going to change a little bit with the wide receiver position, depending on what exactly they're trying to get. They might still try to go get a 6'4" guy on the outside.
Yeah.
Raheem Jarrett or something like that. Those guys are still really good and will fit in any offense. But you will change that up and have some different slot receiver types as well. One more I think I had.
Wow.
Jasper, 2019 offensive line, or two more. Jasper asked, first he asked, will Drake London get some run this year? Will he be redshirted? Could be both. He could play 4 games and still, but I think it depends on how many of those receivers will get opportunities, and how many 4 or 5 wide sets they run with. But Jasper, the last question was, 2019 offensive line better than the 2018 offensive line?
It's not more talented than the 2018 offensive line. I think you might see better production from them, and it's not necessarily – I think you're going to have better coaching, and I think you're going to have a better scheme around them. So maybe individually you might not see guys play at that same level, but I think as a group they'll play better.
I think when you have the snaps going to the place where it's supposed to be, I think
good point.
Automatically raises the group. But
yeah, no, snapping is better. That changes everything. So that's a really good point.
Shotgun, you said you had one more?
No, I think that was it. But there was are the USC Song Girls still banned from games? They were banned from basketball games, but they were at the baseball games this past weekend when USC played UCLA. They did upset them one time.
It was only basketball. I don't think they got banned from any other sport. It was just that, whatever silly reason that they had for doing that. So I don't know. We'll find out if they're going to be at basketball games next year. My guess is yes. I think, the president comes in and says, we're going to put the Song Girls back at basketball games. She would instantly get a lot of favor for just making that kind of small, silly decision, which is a silly decision to ban them. I think whoever comes in fixes that. I think it'll be good. Good PR.
True. I have some Facebook rapid fire if we're up for it.
Sure, real quick.
Augustine says, who's the most impressive coach so far?
Ooh, that's tough.
Graham Harrell.
Yeah, that's not tough. Never mind. Sticking all the other ones.
Gerald says, will USC start the season ranked?
No. No.
I think it'll be
Weird,
close.
though. I feel like USC gets this weird push where writers
Oh.
are like, I have a
it's-
couple
it's
more
called-
spots.
It's called talent.
Okay, yeah, but their
You're like,
coaching
eh.
last year didn't really give them enough to boost them.
It's like, do you want to put Fresno State at 25 or USC? Like, just put USC. You know, like they'll get some votes and stuff. I'm not sure. It might be like in the top 30, but not really ranked.
I don't think so.
Maybe one of the polls. Maybe the coaches poll put them in
I
because
don't
it's
think so.
all right.
2 more questions. Robert says, who is stepping up as a leader? We kind of already touched on that.
Austin Jackson.
Austin Jackson, John Houston.
John, yeah, he's more vocal. I think Christian Rector too.
Yeah. He's not there on Thursdays, though, because he has class, so it's a dip at times.
Little dip.
One final question from One Blue Love 23. He says, is this the longest show you guys have ever done for Tunnel Vision? I believe so.
No, a lot of them have gone an hour and a half. You know,
We're
like,
an hour 36 right now.
yeah. I don't know. Like we always shoot for an hour, but then it's like if you get live calls, you want
Yeah,
to.
once we added live calls, it really lengthens this
It
whole
really does, yeah.
process.
Because I mean, it's great. We're lucky that we get a lot of questions on the different platforms and stuff. But adding live calls and adding like the tweets. Did we get much tweets for today or not
No,
really?
we did not.
So the tweets are weird because you have to do like hashtag tunnel vision and it can't be too long, otherwise it truncates it and stuff. But
We do get some funny tweets that aren't related to tunnel vision. Someone said, "Watch me do it." Hashtag tunnel vision. So I don't know if that's.
yeah, that
related
was
to
not
it.
for our show. But tunnel vision is like a hashtag that other people use. But
True.
But it's good. We do appreciate all the live people that are watching and then interacting and stuff
course.
because you don't have to. I mean, most people just want to kind of chill and watch. So, but it's nice because we get to talk with you, and I mean that's why we love the live calls. Just being able to talk and go back and forth a little bit is awesome.
Any Periscope questions? You didn't really give them a lot of love.
No,
right?
there wasn't really much on the
okay.
Periscope today. So yeah, it was pretty quiet. There was a player, parent or two stop in and to check it out.
Hello.
But yeah,
Daniel has asked this question 3 times, so I just feel bad. He says, would Keaton Slovis transfer with Bryce Young coming in or vice versa? Would Bryce change his decision if Keaton somehow lights it up?
No.
yeah, I don't think that's. I mean, Slovis is doing well enough.
Slovis knows that Bryce Young is coming, so he's
Yeah.
not going to immediately transfer.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's no like mystery there. It would have to be like Bryce Young comes in next year and is instantly ahead of Slovis, and Slovis is 5th on the whatever. And so something like that would probably have to happen. But,
Alrighty.
Yeah.
And the number 55 is not retired. Some people apparently thought that. Just because it hasn't
No.
been given out does not mean it's retired.
And real quick, just public service. My old buddy. So if you remember back in the 90s, Jeff Kopp was a great linebacker for USC. Used to wear number 35. For those people out there that were like, Cam Smith shouldn't wear 35. That was a linebacker number for a long time. Somehow it became a punter number, but it's a good linebacker number. So 55 is great. Everyone talks about that, but 35 was a good linebacker number too. So shout out to Jeff Kopp, who was he brought his son to practice yesterday.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Who was the last 55? It was
Lamar Dawson.
Yes, I knew it was an L. Lamar Dawson. As a reminder, like we said at the top of the show, Spring Showcase at 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. on Saturday. If you want to,
Be a different type of spring showcase.
that'd be
11
fun. It's more of Shotgun and I's time frame, 11 p.m. versus a.m.
You get all the students out there.
That's
True. It'd be fun. Make it like glow
Saturday
in the
night
dark.
party. Yeah.
That would be fun. Ideas.
Spring Showcase rave or something like.
Sure. Sounds good to me. Any final thoughts before we wrap up our long show today?
Nope.
No, happy birthday, Keely.
Thank you. Well, that's going to wrap it up. We will be back next week for our final tunnel vision of spring camp. Tongue-tied. It's birthday. But that's going to wrap it up. That is Shotgun Spratling. That's Ryan. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks for watching.
See ya.